There are moments in life that split your world into before and after. Moments so powerful, so unbelievable, that your mind refuses to accept them even as they're happening right in front of you. For me, that moment came on a cold Tuesday evening in November. 25 years after I buried my daughter. I was sitting in my living room, the same old armchair I'd sat in for decades, watching the news with the volume low. My wife, Margaret, had passed 3 years earlier. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that becomes your companion when everyone you love is gone. Then came the knock. Not a doorbell. Not a phone call. A knock. Soft, hesitant, like whoever was on the other side wasn't sure they should be there at all. That I remember thinking it was probably a neighbor. Maybe someone is selling something. I almost didn't get up. My knees aren't what they used to be, and at 72, every movement requires a decision. But something made me stand. Something I can't explain even now. That I shuffled to the door, turned the lock, and pulled it open. And there she was. A woman. Mid-30s. Dark hair pulled back. Eyes that I would have recognized anywhere, in any lifetime, in any universe. Green. Like spring leaves. Like her mother's. Like the little girl I lost in 1999. She looked at me, tears already streaming down her face, and said one word that turned my entire reality upside down. Dad. I couldn't breathe. My hand gripped the doorframe so hard I thought it might snap. The world tilted. Everything went silent except for the pounding of my heart. Because those eyes, that voice, that face, they belonged to my daughter. My daughter, who died 25 years ago in a fire that destroyed everything. My daughter, Emily. Who was supposed to be dead. To understand what happened that night at my door, you need to know what happened 25 years before. It was March 1999. Emily was 9 years old. A bright, curious kid who loved drawing, asked a million questions, and had a laugh that could light up the darkest room. She was our only child. Margaret and I had tried for years to have a baby, and when Emily came, she was our miracle. We lived in a small town in Oregon. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone. Safe. Quiet. The kind of town where you never lock your doors. That March, I was working as a manager at a lumber mill. Margaret was a schoolteacher. Emily was in 4th grade. Life was simple. Beautiful. Perfect. Then came the night that destroyed us. That I was working late. There had been an issue with one of the machines, and I stayed behind to help the crew fix it. Margaret and Emily were home. It was a Friday night. Margaret had promised to make Emily's favorite dinner, spaghetti with garlic bread. Around 8:30 p.m., my phone rang. It was our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. Her voice was frantic, screaming. Robert. Your house. It's on fire. I don't remember the drive home. I don't remember parking. All I remember is the orange glow against the night sky and the sound of sirens screaming through the air. When I got there, the house was already engulfed. Flames poured out of the windows. The roof was collapsing. Firefighters were everywhere, shouting, spraying water, but it was too late. I tried to run inside. I screamed their names. Emily. Margaret. Over and over. 3 firefighters had to hold me back. Margaret made it out. Barely. She was unconscious, suffering from severe smoke inhalation. They rushed her to the hospital. But Emily. Emily never came out. They found her remains 2 days later. In what used to be her bedroom. The fire had been so intense, so destructive, that there wasn't much left. Just enough for the coroner to confirm it was a child. They told us it was an electrical fault. Old wiring. A tragic accident. We buried her in a closed casket. A small white box that felt impossibly light when I carried it. I remember thinking, how can my entire world weigh so little? Margaret never recovered. Not really. She smiled when she had to. She went through the motions. But the light in her eyes was gone. Part of her died in that fire too. We tried to move on. We moved to a different town. I changed jobs. We went to therapy. But the wound never healed. And when Margaret died in 2021, from a heart attack, the doctors said it was sudden, but I knew it was from a heart that had been broken for decades. I was left alone with the ghosts. So you can imagine what it felt like when Emily, my dead daughter, knocked on my door and called me Dad. I don't know how long I stood there staring at her. Seconds. Minutes. It felt like hours. She was crying. I was frozen. My brain was screaming that this wasn't possible. That I was hallucinating. That I'd finally lost my mind after all these years of grief. But she was real. Solid. Standing on my porch in a gray coat, with tears running down her face and a look of absolute terror in her eyes. Dad, she said again, her voice breaking. I know this is impossible. I know you don't understand. But it's me. It's Emily. I finally found my voice. It came out as a whisper. You're dead. She shook her head, more tears falling. I'm not. I'm here. I'm alive. I've been alive this whole time. I felt my legs give out. I grabbed the door to keep from collapsing. No. No, this isn't. You can't be. She stepped forward, and that's when I saw it. On her left wrist. A small scar. Shaped like a crescent moon. Emily had fallen off her bike when she was 6. Cut her wrist on a piece of metal. It took 12 stitches. The scar never faded. I knew that scar. Oh my God, I whispered. Oh my God, it's really you. And then I did something I hadn't done in 25 years. I reached out and touched my daughter's face. She was warm. Real. Alive. We both broke down. Right there on the porch. She collapsed into my arms, and I held her like I used to when she was little. Like I'd dreamed of doing every single day since the fire. How? I managed to say between sobs. How is this possible? She pulled back, wiping her eyes. Can I come inside? Please. I'll explain everything. But not out here. I nodded, still in shock, and led her into the house. We sat in the living room. The same room where I'd spent years mourning her. She looked around, taking it all in, fresh tears streaming down her face. I don't even know where to start, she said. Start with the truth, I said, my voice shaking. Start with how you're alive when I buried you. She took a deep breath. And then she told me a story that made my blood run cold. Dad, she said quietly, I didn't die in that fire. Then who? I don't know, she said. But it wasn't me. Because that night, I wasn't home. Emily's hands were shaking as she spoke. I could see the trauma written all over her face. Whatever she was about to tell me, it had haunted her for 25 years. That night, she began, Mom got a phone call. Around 6 p.m. I was in my room drawing. I heard her talking to someone. She sounded stressed. Maybe even scared. I leaned forward. Who was it? I don't know. She never told me. But after she hung up, she came to my room and said we had to go. That someone was coming to pick me up for a special sleepover. A sleepover? With who? Emily shook her head. She didn't say. She just said it was important. I had to pack a bag quickly and be ready. She seemed panicked, Dad. Like something was really wrong. My mind was racing. Margaret never mentioned any of this. Not to the police. Not to me. Why would she send Emily away that night? About 20 minutes later, Emily continued, a car pulled up. A woman got out. I'd never seen her before. She was older, maybe in her 50s. Mom handed me my bag, kissed me, and told me to be good. She said she loved me. And then I left. Where did you go? To a house about 30 miles away. In the mountains. The woman, she said her name was Ruth. She told me I was going to stay with her for a little while. That it was a surprise for you and Mom. I felt sick. And then what happened? Emily's voice dropped to almost a whisper. The next morning, Ruth woke me up. She was crying. She sat me down and told me there had been a fire. Our house burned down. Mom was in the hospital. And that. She couldn't finish. I did it for her. That you were dead. She nodded, tears flowing freely now. She told me it was too dangerous for me to go back. That bad people were involved. That if anyone knew I was alive, they would hurt me. She said Mom had sent me away to protect me. My chest felt tight. But why? Protect you from who? I didn't know. I was 9 years old, Dad. I was terrified. I wanted to go home. I wanted you. But Ruth said I couldn't. That I had to stay hidden. That one day, when it was safe, I could come back. 25 years, I said, my voice breaking. You stayed hidden for 25 years. Ruth raised me, Emily said. She homeschooled me. We moved around a lot. Different towns, different states. She was kind to me, but she was always scared. Always looking over her shoulder. She never told me the full truth. Just that there were dangerous people who couldn't know I existed. I felt rage building inside me. And Margaret? Your mother. She knew you were alive. Emily nodded slowly. Ruth told me Mom visited once. A year after the fire. I wasn't allowed to see her, but Ruth said they talked. That Mom made sure I was okay and safe. I stood up, my hands shaking. Margaret knew. She knew you were alive, and she never told me. Dad. She let me believe you were dead. I shouted, the words tearing out of me. She let me grieve. She let me bury an empty casket. How could she do that? Emily stood too, reaching for me. I don't know, Dad. I don't have all the answers. Ruth died 6 months ago. Cancer. Before she passed, she told me it was finally safe. That I could find you. That I deserved to know the truth. What truth? I demanded. What was Margaret protecting you from? Emily looked at me with those green eyes, and I saw the fear still living there after all these years. She was protecting me from someone who wanted me dead, she said quietly. Someone powerful. Someone who would have killed me if they knew I survived. Who? She hesitated. Then said one word changed everything I thought I knew. Family. The word hung in the air like poison. Family. I sat back down, my mind reeling. What are you talking about? What family? Emily pulled out her phone. Before Ruth died, she gave me something. Documents. Letters. Things Mom had left with her. She opened a folder on her phone and handed it to me. I scrolled through scanned images. Letters in Margaret's handwriting. Legal documents. Photos I'd never seen before. Dad, Emily said carefully, did you know Mom had a brother? I looked up sharply. No. Margaret told me she was an only child. Her parents died when she was young. She had no siblings. She lied, Emily said softly. She had a brother. His name was Richard. Richard Castellano. The name meant nothing to me. Why would she lie about that? Because Richard was dangerous. He was involved in things, Dad. Bad things. Ruth's documents mentioned organized crime. Money laundering. Violence. I felt cold. You're saying your mother's brother was a criminal? More than that, Emily said. From what I've pieced together, Richard was part of a criminal organization that operated in the Northwest. And Mom witnessed something. Something that could have destroyed him. What did she witness? Emily pulled up another document. A newspaper article from 1998. The headline read, "Businessman found dead in suspected mob hit." This man, Emily said, pointing to the photo, was a federal informant. He was going to testify against Richard's organization. He was killed 3 weeks before the trial. And Margaret saw something. Emily nodded. According to Ruth, Mom was in the wrong place at the wrong time. She saw Richard. She could identify him. He knew it. And he couldn't risk her talking. The pieces were starting to come together, but they formed a picture so dark I didn't want to believe it. So he threatened her, I said slowly. Worse, Emily replied. He threatened me. Ruth said Richard told Mom that if she ever went to the police, if she ever testified, he would make sure I paid the price. That something terrible would happen to me. I felt rage boiling inside me. So the fire wasn't an accident, Emily finished. It was a warning. Or maybe an attempt. Ruth thought Richard was trying to scare Mom into silence by targeting our home. But Mom must have known it was coming. That's why she sent me away that night. But the body, I said, my voice hollow. If you weren't in the fire, whose remains did they find? Emily's face went pale. I don't know, Dad. That's what terrifies me. Either they were wrong about the identification, or she didn't need to finish. The implication was horrifying. Where is Richard now? I asked, my voice hard. Emily shook her head. I don't know. Ruth said he disappeared after the fire. Went underground. The organization fell apart in the early 2000s. Most of them were arrested or killed. But Richard was never caught. So he's still out there. Maybe. Or maybe he's dead. Ruth said it was finally safe for me to come forward because enough time had passed. Because no one's looking anymore. I stood up, pacing. 25 years. Margaret had carried this secret for 25 years. She'd sent our daughter away, let me believe she was dead, all to protect her from a monster. And she'd done it alone. Your mother, I said, my voice breaking, she must have been so scared. So alone. Emily nodded, crying again. I think it killed her, Dad. Ruth said Mom visited one more time, about 5 years after the fire. She looked sick. Broken. Ruth tried to convince her to tell you, but Mom refused. She said it was too dangerous. That the less you knew, the safer you were. Margaret had protected us both. In the most painful way possible. But now Emily was here. After 25 years. Standing in my living room. Alive. And I had a choice to make. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Emily stayed in the guest room, the same room that used to be her bedroom before we moved. We'd talked until 3 in the morning, going through every document, every piece of Ruth's information, trying to make sense of 25 years of lies and pain. By morning, I'd made a decision. If Richard Castellano were still alive, he would need to pay. Not just for the fire. Not just for stealing my daughter's childhood. But for what he did to Margaret. Not just for the fire. Not just for stealing my daughter's childhood. But for what he did to Margaret. For the fear he put in her heart. For the secret that ate her alive until her body finally gave out. Dad, Emily said over coffee, what are you thinking? I looked at my daughter. My alive, breathing, real daughter. I'm thinking we need to find him. And then what? Then we make sure he faces justice. Emily bit her lip. Ruth said it's been 25 years. Richard's probably gone. Dead or disappeared for good. Maybe, I said. But we have to try. We have to know. Over the next few weeks, Emily and I became investigators. We dug through everything. Old newspaper archives. Police records. Ruth's documents. We hired a private investigator, a retired cop named Danny who'd worked organized crime cases in the 90s. Danny was good. Really good. Within 2 weeks, he came back with a lead. Richard Castellano, Danny said, laying out photos on my kitchen table, is very much alive. My heart jumped. Where? Arizona. Phoenix. He's been living under a different name. Paul Richardson. Works as a consultant for a real estate company. Clean record. Pays his taxes. Model citizen. Are you sure it's him? Danny pushed a photo across the table. An older man, maybe late 60s, silver hair, expensive suit. But the eyes, cold, calculating. The face of someone who'd done terrible things and gotten away with it. It's him, Danny confirmed. Facial recognition match. And I found something else. He pulled out another document. He's got a daughter. Lives in Phoenix, too. Works at a hospital. She has no idea who her father really is. Emily looked at me. What do we do? I stared at the photo of Richard. The man who destroyed my family. Who'd forced my wife to make an impossible choice. Who'd stolen 25 years from my daughter. We expose him, I said quietly. We take everything we have to the FBI. We make sure the world knows who Paul Richardson really is. Danny nodded. I've got a contact. An agent who worked the Castellano case back in the day. He's been waiting 20 years for this. Will they arrest him? If we have enough evidence, yes. The murder case from 1998 is still open. If we can prove Richard was involved, and that he's been hiding under a false identity, they'll take him down. Emily reached across the table and took my hand. Are you sure, Dad? Once we do this, there's no going back. I squeezed her hand. Your mother spent 25 years protecting you. Living in fear. Dying with a broken heart. We owe it to her to finish this. Okay, Emily said. Let's do it. 2 months later, I stood in a federal courtroom in Phoenix, Arizona, watching as Richard Castellano, the man who'd hidden as Paul Richardson for over 2 decades, was led in wearing handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit. The FBI had moved fast once we gave them everything. Danny's evidence. Ruth's documents. Emily's testimony. Margaret's letters describing what she'd witnessed. It was enough. Richard was charged with murder, conspiracy, identity fraud, and a dozen other crimes. His perfect life as Paul Richardson crumbled overnight. His daughter, the one who'd known him as a loving father, was devastated. But she deserved the truth. Everyone did. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Emily and I attended every single day. When they showed the evidence, the courtroom went silent. Photos of the 1998 murder victim. Records proving Richard's connection to the crime. And most damning of all, a letter Margaret had written years ago, sealed with Ruth, describing exactly what she'd seen that night in 1998. Richard's face never changed. Cold. Empty. Even when they read the verdict. Guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As they led him away, he looked at Emily. Just once. I saw something flicker in his eyes. Maybe regret. Maybe just anger that he'd finally been caught. Emily didn't flinch. She stared right back at him, and in that moment, I saw the strength her mother had given her. Outside the courthouse, Emily turned to me. Is it over? I put my arm around her. It's over. Do you think Mom knows? Where is she? I looked up at the sky, clear and blue, and felt something I hadn't felt in 25 years. Peace. Yeah, I said. I think she knows. It's been a year since that day in court. Emily lives 10 minutes away now. She's working at a local nonprofit, helping families in crisis. She says it's her way of honoring Ruth, who saved her life, and Margaret, who sacrificed everything to protect her. We have dinner every Sunday. Sometimes we talk about Margaret. About the choices she made. The burden she carried. We don't have all the answers. We never will. But we understand now. And we forgive her. Because love isn't always simple. Sometimes love looks like impossible choices. Like carrying secrets that destroy you. Like living a lie, so the people you love can survive. Margaret did that. For 25 years, she lived in a prison of her own making so that Emily could be safe. And in the end, she won. Richard lost. Emily survived. Justice was served. But it cost us so much. Sometimes I think about that night. The knock on the door. The moment I saw my daughter's face after 25 years of grief. I think about all the time we lost. The birthdays. The graduations. The life we could have had. But I also think about the miracle. Because Emily's alive. Against all odds, she's here. We found each other again. And that has to mean something, that if I've learned anything from this nightmare, it's that the truth always matters. Secrets, no matter how well-intentioned, have a cost. They eat you alive from the inside. Margaret paid that cost. She paid it every single day. But she also gave Emily life twice. Once when she was born. And once when she sent her away into the darkness, trusting that somehow, someday, the light would find her again. It did. I have my daughter back. And wherever Margaret is, I hope she's finally at peace, knowing that everything she sacrificed, every tear she cried in silence, every year she lived with a broken heart, it wasn't for nothing. Emily is home. The truth is out. And the man who tried to destroy us is behind bars where he belongs. That's not just revenge. That's redemption. Sometimes the people we love carry burdens in silence to protect us. The secrets that break them are the shields that save us. Truth, no matter how painful, is the only path to real freedom. And family isn't just blood, it's the people who sacrifice everything so you can live.